was March 1st, 2000. 5 of the crew were below deck when a loud crash struck the ship. After the crash, one passenger, a 20-year-old woman named Mary Wilkinson, went up deck to see what all the commotion above was about. The boat had smashed into a huge coral reef and tilted on her side. When Mary looked out, to her horror and unsurprise, there was no one on deck. She shouted at the top of her lungs, hoping and praying that someone, anyone, would hear her, but no one did. The ship wasn't in danger of sinking anymore, so the 5 people still on board stayed there until morning, when the storm had almost died down. Then they got into an old boat they had patched up in the night and started to row into the nearby island. Eventually, they were only 2/3 away from land. Then, like in the blink of an eye, something flipped and struck the side of the boat, and as if it were a wave crossed with a speeding freight train. The boat was flipped over, and both oars snapped in two. And 3 of the crew were swept away. But Alvin Williams, as Walsh's originally going to see family in Costa Rica, managed to fight what seemed to be a slowly dying current. What he saw that really flipped over the boat made him doubt his own eyes. It looked like a cross between a whale, a monitor lizard, and the tail was almost like an upside-down shark fin. And at the end, it was a Tylosaurus. It must have thought the boat was a turtle or something. But he didn't have much time to ponder. You could make out something sinking slowly down to the seafloor. It was Mary. She was knocked out senseless upon the Mosasaur's impact. Al swam down and grabbed her. Then he fought his way back up to the surface onto a large piece of driftwood and straight to the shore, where he revived Mary. She seemed only to have a minor concussion. There was no sign of the others, and they could only assume the worst. That was when Al pointed out something further down the shores. They were dinosaurs. The large sickle claws on both feet. It told them that they were raptors. But one raptor, the one not pursued, was bigger than the other. A lot bigger. At least a little bit bigger than a man. And it had a bald head with lots of jowls and lumps of flesh that kind of reminded Al of a king vulture or a turkey vulture. The smaller raptor that was being chased was clad in head to toe in feathers. It looked about 2 feet long and 3 feet tall. The big raptor missed its kill, but then it looked at them. Without another word of thought, Al and Mary made their way into the forest. Quickly. But they didn't know what to expect. Where to go. What to do. For the most part, even how any of this was possible. They just made their way into the woods, praying for the best. Samantha, Annabelle, and Michael had been staying on a path leading through the brush. Samantha in the lead, and the 2 siblings close behind. They hadn't seen the mosasaur, and had given the others up for lost. They had gone 5 or 6 miles at this point. stopping every now and then to make some kind of SOS signal. They, they could hear the heavy, surprisingly soft padding for some big animals was crashing through the brush. Sure enough, a herd of elephants were moving through the trees. They passed our heroes, who stood at a safe distance and watching them in amazement. Much to Samantha's surprise, he's at the back of the herd was a woolly mammoth and her calf. They lumbered into the forest, and Samantha convinced the others to follow them. The herd smashed through into trees, eating leaves, fruit, and even the branches themselves. The three castaways followed the herd for about 2 or 3 miles, half brush and half woodland. At this point, the three people stopped to take a rest under a tree. Cries of joy came around one side as all five of our heroes were reunited at last. A few minutes later, Alvin went out to find some food, and Mike and Samantha went out to get water from the nearby pond. Anne stayed behind to patch up Mary's wounds. Already, they talked about what they missed about home, and specified on where the ship was taking them all. In the first place, that was when a bird landed on Mary's head. It was suffering from a severe attack of gout, and was only stopping for rest. He let Anne stroke him for a little while before flying off when Al returned with some honey and fruit. Another bird following close behind. An hour later, our heroes pushed deeper into the woods, and eventually found themselves in what appeared to be some kind of boneyard. Skulls, bones, and three-toed footprints were everywhere. Yet, the whole lair seemed to have sort of a feeling of cleanliness to it. Here and there, pickaxe-shaped teeth could be found scattered across the clearing. Suddenly, they could hear something big coming, and it was close, very close. Al, Mary, and Mike ran for the entrance of the clearing. Anne and Sammy did the most foolish thing they could possibly do. They hid behind the 9-foot skull of a Torosaurus as best they could. And there he was, the king of the dinosaurs himself, with a dead hadrosaur in his jaws. He plopped it down and started feasting. Despite being right next to the skull, he didn't notice them. Earlier, our protagonists had covered themselves in the animal's droppings, which masked their scent. The second the Rex was finished eating, and his back was turned, Anne and Samantha made a break for it to where the others were hiding. Samantha insisted they stay right where they were and watch the T-Rex's behaviors. At that point, she felt like the luckiest junior paleontologist to ever walk the earth. The T-Rex walked around the clearing, kicking or clearing away pieces of wood, picking up away weeds, and sometimes arranging some of the bones. What was he doing? At the point at which he finished, he started to the dead tree at the edge of the clearing. No one moved. The Rex rubbed his muzzle on the tree, then he scratched his sides and his crests. He seemed to enjoy it. As a back scratcher, it was obviously an able substitute for his small arms, one of which broken. Then, with all the work said and done, the T-Rex made a call. A loud, booming, spine-chilling rumble. It was a mating call, and the boneyard was a stage on which he could display to females. Our heroes were about to sneak away when Al stopped them. Another T-Rex was already at the entrance. The male Rex, or buck, did a dance. He got slightly lower to the ground, echoing a sort of clicky, honky, rumbling noise, and slowly raking his feet back and forth on the ground. He raised his head, showing his crocodilian-like throat sack, and lowered it to show his crests. If she were impressed, the female, or doe, wasn't showing it. He rocked back on his tail and showed his throat again to build trust. The doe inspected the buck and his boneyard, and eventually fell in line with his dance to show her affection. The two Rexes muzzled each other and catch each other's scent and feel. Basically, the Tyrannosaurus version of a kiss. Our heroes then dragged Sammy away before they could be noticed. They walked several hours, making their way deeper into the forest and eventually stopping in a clearing for the night, only half a mile away from a huge river. The tree in its center was at least 30 or 50 feet high. Al climbed 15 feet and established a branch on which they could spend the night. Yet, his curiosity drove him further upwards. By the time he reached 48 feet, he could look out and see the wonderful panorama of that strange island. It was huge. The woods took up a good bit of it, but at least a third appeared to be grasslands. The buildings in the distance gave him hope that there were people living here. But then he took a closer look. He saw greenish colors on the buildings, vines creeping through broken windows, and the huge beaks and giraffe-like necks of flying giants. If there was a city over there, it was probably, understandably, uninhabited. He had brought up some tools, and they hauled up some old planks so that he could make a place for them all to sleep in without falling down. They then hauled up Mary and Mike since they couldn't really climb very well. Mary and Anne came up first, then Samantha and Michael. He tried not to look down. In a brief conversation, everyone started to argue and panic that no one would ever find and rescue them. But that was when Alvin silenced them and reminded them all to have faith and hope. And what will we do until then? Mike said in complaint. Build a tree house and crash there? Exactly, said Al. When all was said and done, they prayed to God to protect them during the night and went to sleep. Or at least they tried. Beautiful and terrifying as it was, the ambience of the wood was just so loud. None were worse than the currently mating pair of Tyrannosaurus, only a mile or two away, semi-painfully remarking that they would go on like this for a few days, or weeks.